Hello everybody and welcome back to another video series here. Today we're going to be going over a deck that's probably my favorite deck in Modern. And I'll tell you why. So if you've never seen me play, if it's your first time watching me, then this is probably your first time, seeing this deck. Because it's not a very popular deck. When Splinter Twin got banned, the whole blue deck with a combo archetype kind of fell off the map. And it kind of got picked up again. There's like Through the Breach versions of like Emrakul and blue-red decks. There's blue-red, Pestermite, Deceiver X are Kiki decks that are like Splinter Twin, but obviously Kiki Jiki is a bit more fragile than Splinter Twin and also would turn slower. But you really didn't have that like turn 4 combo kill deck with like a blue tempo control shell in Modern after the Splinter Twin ban. And so, once Saheeli Rai and Feldar Guardian came into the scene in Standard, and we saw that combo kind of take over Standard and eventually get banned in Standard, I started thinking, well, obviously it's not Splinter Twin, it's Sorcery Speed, but hey, it's a turn 4 kill if your opponent doesn't interact with you. And that's something that's, I think, very crucial here. And the biggest part, what I like about it, is that we're in Jeskai colors. So what I like about Jeskai right now, and excuse me, Path to Exile in general, Path to Exile is a card that's just been getting better and better recently, especially with Death Shadow, with humans. It's a card that really gives you a reason to be Jeskai over something like a blue-red deck. And the fact is that each individual combo piece in this version of the deck, which is Saheeli Rai and Feldar Guardian, are actually a bit better individually sometimes than, say, Pestermite and Splinter Twin. Feldar Guardian can, if you've never seen the card before, it enters the battlefield and it kind of blinks one of your own creatures. So it resets kind of enter the battlefield effects. So you get to play like cards like Wall of Omens, like Spreading Seas, like Snapcaster Mage, like Pia and Kiran Alar, and you kind of get value off of your creatures without like losing to a removal spell, right? Because you still keep your Feldar Guardian if your opponent, like, say, bolts in response, to your targeting your Snapcaster Mage. Whereas if you equip the Splinter Twin to your Snapcaster Mage for value and got bolted, that's just a rough 2-for-1. And so that's what I like. Individually, Feldar Guardian can be quite a powerful card that's a bit less, fragile than Splinter Twin. And Saheeli Rai is also a planeswalker, which means she's sometimes hard to interact with once she hits the board, right? A Deceiver Exarch, a Pestermite, they can need a Fatal Push, they can need a Lightning Bolt, they can need a Path to Exile. Saheeli Rai, once she hits the board and ticks up to 4, she can't even be answered with a Lightning Bolt. So it really means the opponent has to really respect the combo, and they can't always use their removal spells at the right times. They can't just, in response to you playing Deceiver Exarch, Path to Exile it, right? You're playing Saheeli Rai, you tick up, your opponent has a removal spell, well, they gotta wait a turn, and that might put them off their tempo. And so that's what I really like about a Planeswalker. With that said, she's also fragile, right? What that means is she's very susceptible to creatures on the ground if you don't have any removal or blockers. But that's why this whole deck has, Path to Exile, Lightning Bolt, Wall of Omens, Remand. It's got all these pieces to make sure the board is clear so that when you combo or play your combo pieces, you can generally protect them. So now I'll go over just generally, now that I went over the basics, let's go over exactly how the combo works, right? So you have Feldar Guardian and Saheeli Rai. And they can work on multiple different ways, but generally, obviously, the combo is the same in each scenario. But what you can do is play Saheeli Rai on turn 3, and then Feldar Guardian on turn 4. Feldar Guardian targets Saheeli. Saheeli -2s on Feldar. That creates a new token of Feldar, which then retargets Saheeli. The Saheeli comes back into play. You can use her Planeswalker abilities again, retargeting your Feldar Guardian, and now you have infinite Feldar Guardian tokens with haste. Now they're 1 power, which means they can get hosed by certain things here and there, but generally game 1, that's a game-winning combo. It's important to remember that this can be broken up by something like a Lightning Bolt or any other burn spell that targets Planeswalkers. So when your Feldar Guardian enters a battlefield and retargets Saheeli Rai, with that ability on the stack, your opponent can Lightning Bolt Saheeli, because remember, she will have 1 loyalty after you -1 her on Feldar Guardian, and therefore a Lightning Bolt will break up the combo. With that said, it's a 1-for-1 trade usually, so it's not the end of the world, and you can always rebuild usually, but it can definitely matter in a close race. Similarly, your opponent can respond to the -2 trigger on Feldar Guardian with a removal spell, like a Path to Exile, a Fatal Push, something like that. Obviously, the combo is a bit fragile, but in general, the deck, if you find the right time to combo, you can usually get there. Now, the rest of the deck, obviously, now we went over the combo, the rest of the deck is kind of this like tempo value shell, okay? So you're really trying to keep the board clear with a bunch of cheap removal spells like Lightning Bolt, Path to Exile. You have 3 Snapcaster Mages to rebuy those Lightning Bolts and Path to Exile. You have Serum Visions as your premier kind of like dig spell on turn 1 to set up the combo. You play 4 Wall of Omens, which is just an enter the battlefield defender but draws a card, so it always replaces itself, so it's never card disadvantage, and you can even end up blinking it with Feldar Guardian or even copying it with Saheeli Rai to get more draw triggers as you're digging towards your combo. So this turn 2, like being able to cycle through your deck on turns 1 and 2 is really important, which is why we also have 4 copies of Spreading Seas. Now Spreading Seas, again, can also be targeted by Feldar Guardian, as well as just shut down like really greedy mana bases. Spreading Seas, if you've ever seen like blue-white control in action, you'll notice Spreading Seas is one of their best cards in their mana denial plan. Now obviously they have Field of Ruins and things like that to go along with it, but Spreading Seas in general really shuts off greedy mana bases and also gives you a lot of game against Tron and utility lands, man lands. It's even great against Affinity, just targeting their Blink Moth and Ink Moth Nexi, which means you can just kind of answer their board and then Spreading Seas their lands, and then, you know, so you essentially answer one of their threats and you also draw a card, which is a really good rate for 2 mana. And obviously you can end up blinking it with Feldar, etc., etc. And then we also have 4 Remand, which kind of is a staple of these types of decks. Now Remand can often be your best card or your worst card in certain matchups, and I have often considered, you know, cutting some copies, but it's really just one of the best cards you can play on turn 2, especially even better on the play. So it's really important as it obviously counters an opponent's spell and cycles, so you draw a card. Now obviously it doesn't actually counter it, it puts it back to their hand, but that's fine, and it also just make sure the board is clear so that you can, you know, turn 2 Remand, turn 3 Saheeli, then your opponent, you know, does whatever they want again, maybe they tap out, and then you go, you know, Feldar Guardian. And it's important that it cycles because it keeps the gas going, and that's what this kind of deck needs. It needs the tempo advantage, and it needs the kind of card filtering, card drawing, which is really, really important. And then we have a Vendilion Click here as well, which is a great way to kind of clear the way for the combo. But oftentimes, if you feel like the combo is too fragile or it's not going to get there, you can just kind of play this tempo plan, right? You play Vendilion Click, you hold up Remands and Bolts and Snap Bolts, and you just start chipping away damage, and eventually that gets there against certain matchups or strategies where you feel like comboing out is just too risky, you can't tap out. So you play kind of this flash game and just kind of beat your opponent to death regularly, which is really nice. And then, of course, I went over PN Kiran Alar, which is a great value card. Enters the battlefield, you create 2 Thopters. This is a great way to protect Saheeli on the ground. It's a great way to get value off of Feldar Guardian's ETB reset, as well as, you know, making a copy of PN Kiran Alar. Now, remember, it's legendary, so you will only keep the non-token PN Kiran Alar, but you will still get 2 color Thopter tokens. And PN Kiran Alar is really great against aggro strategies, which this deck can have trouble against sometimes, especially if you draw the Remand half of your deck. So PN Kiran Alar can really help stabilize. And Teferi is just an insane magic card. If you can like play it on turn 5 +1 and keep up Remand, you're in a really good spot. And what's nice is Feldar Guardian can also blink Teferi, which essentially, let's say you have a Teferi on board already, you go +1, you play Feldar, you target Teferi, and then you go +1, and then you know, untap 4 lands at the end of your turn. So you don't need to necessarily keep around the exact copy of Teferi that you had to begin with a +1 to untap your lands at the end. So while it will reset his loyalty and he will only be at 5 instead of 6, for example, you still get those double triggers. You get to untap all those lands, and you get to keep up interaction. And you know, you replace Feldar Guardian essentially, and so you're just kind of like cycling through your deck at this massive rate, while also having a board presence, a blocker to protect Teferi. And it's all these like little interactions, but they definitely come up. Especially because you see so many cards each game, right? Serum Vision cycles, Wall of Omen cycles, Spreading Seas cycles, Remand cycles. So your Snapcaster mages can cycle in combination with Serum Visions and Remand. Saheeli can cycle in combination with Wall of Omens. Vendilion can target yourself to filter a card to the bottom of your deck and draw a card. Felidar Guardian can replace itself. Teferi can replace itself. So, like, almost every single card in your deck can replace itself in the right scenario, or just replaces itself no matter what. And that's what's amazing about this deck, is that you see so many of your cards each game that sometimes you don't even have the problem of drawing the wrong half of your deck. That's what I really like about cycling through your deck so much, is that Control can often have the problem of seeing the wrong half of the deck, which can still happen with this deck, don't get me wrong, but you see so many cards that you'll probably get a combination of your Lightning Bolts and your Remands and your Path to Exiles and your P and Kieran Nalars, and your Spreading Seeds. You'll probably see 1 to 2 copies of each of those usually per game, which is really nice. Now, obviously, in my opinion, I think like the worst games that you can get with this deck are like when you're up against Burn, like you're on the draw and you run into like Humans or Burn, like and you have a bunch of like Remands stuck in your hand. That's like the worst case scenario. In my opinion, like getting those aggro matchups and you start out with the wrong half of your deck and you don't have time to cycle into the right part. So there's definitely a cost to all of these like cards here. They're not perfect in every matchup, but generally we go to the sideboard and we fix some of those matchups, right? So in regards to aggro, probably one of the toughest matchups for this deck. You have Double Settle the Wreckage, you have Grim Lavamancer, you have P and Kieran Nalaar, you have Timely Reinforcements, and against Burn you have like Dispels and things like that. You have Engineered Explosives to help you in the early game, clear up the board. And you even have Ruin Halo, which can help against kind of Death Shadow decks, Hollow One, Humans, and then obviously has utility against Storm, Valakut, and even Affinity. So there's a lot of ways you can tackle this sideboard here. And of course, all you have is a Staticaster, great against like these go wide decks with 1 toughness creatures like Elves. Even Goblins has kind of had a little bit rise on MTGO. I've been playing a lot the past few days, and I ran into Goblins like 3 or 4 times. So I don't know if someone like 5-0'd with it, and now everyone knows about it, or everyone's trying it out, or something like that. But it's a very real possibility that we'll run into like one of those types of decks. And then, of course, with Cart Clan Ironworks winning the GP, then we also run 2 copies of Stony Silence, and we have Tron to hit with that as well. We have Affinity, and you don't have necessarily as good of an Affinity matchup as you might want as compared to traditional Jeskai Control. You don't have Supreme Verdicts in the main. You don't have your Lightning Helixes, your Electrolyzes, so that matchup is definitely not as good as it is for Jeskai Control. However, we do have tools in the sideboard to combat it. And then we have a Damping Sphere to also hit Storm, Tron, other combo decks like Ad Nauseam or Cart Clan Ironworks. And then we have, kind of utility spells like Wear Tear, which just, destroys random artifacts or enchantments. We have Celestial Purge, which is great against, Blood Moon, Liana of the Veil. Great against Hollow One like Gurmag Anglers, Taskers, Death Shadows. And I think I covered most of the sideboard here. Grim Lavamancer, again, is something I'm trying out over the second timely. It's good against kind of like little critter decks. It's okay against humans. It's good against elves. And again, good against Affinity. We don't necessarily have a lock, again, against all those matchups as compared to traditional Jeskai Control. So it's important to have kind of these sideboard tools to help you combat those decks. And then, I don't think I covered the mana base. Let me just quickly go over the mana base. It's pretty standard. You have 8 fetches, 5 shock lands, 5 basics. You have 2 check lands, so like Glacial Fortress and Sulphur Falls. Enter the battlefield if you control. Enter the battlefield untapped if you control an island, or plains, or island or mountain. And they're really nice because sometimes you end up having to blink a land with Felidar Guardian. So like you blink. You play Felidar Guardian and you want to have like an untapped red source to hold up Lightning Bolt, or an untapped white source to hold up Path to Exile. Being able to like blink your Glacial Fortress and have it come into play untapped rather than having to blink a Hallowed Fountain and having it like shock you is actually really nice. And that does come up pretty often, especially because you can actually combo off in 1 turn. With this deck, so like on turn 6 with 6 lands, you can play Felidar Guardian for 4 mana, blink one of your lands, have it come into play untapped. Now you have 3 mana, and you play Saheeli, you -2 on Felidar, and then you go off. And so having kind of your lands being able to blink without dealing you damage is actually really, really relevant. Okay, and so I'm still easing back into making content. Obviously, it's been a really long time since I made videos. So just a few days ago, I made a Mardu Pyromancer series. Now I'm going to Jeskai Saheeli, and we're still going to do the competitive single queue lobbies. So what that means is, we're still paying money to enter these lobbies, which means we should hopefully run into competitive decks and have good opponents and have good games to view here. But I'm a little stressed on time today, and I'm also easing back into making content, so I don't want to necessarily, burn myself out, jump straight into a competitive league, and then not be able to finish it, or something like that. So I just want to make sure that I get back into the groove of making content and give you good content, rather than a long drawn out video of me playing poorly because I'm stressed out in this modern competitive league. However, this will probably be the last video where I do single queue lobbies for competitive decks. What I mean by that is sometimes we play like brews or weird decks and we run them through single queue lobbies just because we're not confident in them. But obviously I'm very confident in this deck. I'm very comfortable with it. I have a tournament finish with this deck. At an SCG Open top 32, which was an 11-4 record. So obviously I'm very comfortable with this deck. I have a lot of 4-1s on Magic Online. I have a 5-0 with this deck on Magic Online. So obviously, the deck, me playing in single queue lobbies says nothing about the deck, is what I'm trying to say. But what I am trying to say is next week, when I go back to probably playing Mardu Pyromancer for another series, we'll go back to the competitive league video. So that means we'll have 5 matches of a modern competitive league, including a deck and some closing comments. And then we'll go back to that with every single deck that I play that is confidently competitive. If that makes sense. And if there's any questions, you guys let me know in the comments. But essentially, we're doing single queue lobbies today, 3 matches of those, and then next week we'll go back to the regular, modern competitive league 5-match series. Okay, so thank you all so much for watching this deck, and stay tuned for the first match of this Jeskai Saheeli series. Thanks so much for watching. Alright, what is up guys? Welcome back to the first video here with Jeskai Saheeli. Yeah, I mean, obviously if this is a creature matchup, we're going to want these 2 cards here, and we have a combo piece. No dig spells, no Wall of Omen, Spreading Seas, Serum Visions, Remand even. Kind of makes this hand a little weak, but I don't think we can mulligan it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep, especially because these 2 interaction spells could be very relevant in this matchup. If we're up against something like Affinity, Elves, Humans, this is going to be, 2 great cards in the matchup. Cavern of Souls. Good sign for these 2 cards, means it's a creature deck, and human. Alright. Aether Vial. Sure. So here, I think I'm going to want to hold up. Okay, Wall of Omens is actually not a bad draw, depending on our opponent's draw. So here I think I'm going to want to hold up either Lightning Bolt or Path to Exile. We don't want to have our better removal spell stripped by a Kite Sail Freebooter. Another Aether Vial. Sure. Interesting. So our opponent did not hit their land drop. Let's go ahead and get actually I think I probably could have gotten away with a Hallowed Fountain there, but that's okay. We do want to have the mana to double spell on certain turns. I think here we're just going to go ahead and Wall of Omens though. If our opponent plays a Noble Hierarch off of the Aether Vial here, I think that's it. Wow, we even have the combo in hand. Now, especially if my opponent has a really clunky draw, I'm going to want to capitalize on it. We should be careful from Noble Hierarch. If Noble Hierarch comes down here, then wow, we definitely have a lot of the combo pieces. And we have interaction. Wow, so no Noble Hierarch, no 1-drop. That means they're going to be solely relying on this Aether Vial to really play their spells. I think what would be the worst to see here would be Kite Sail Freebooter into a Phantasmal Image to copy the Kite Sail Freebooter. Okay, so let's see, if they name Illusion here, then that could definitely happen. But they name Human, so they can't actually Well, they could still like play the Kitesail Freebooter off of. All right, Meddling Mage. Sure. Yeah, that's a little scary. It's a little scary, all right, especially if they have another 2-drop to pair it with. Path to Exile. Interesting. So obviously they probably would have Kitesail Freebooter first to look at my hand if they had one. Here they could still have a Phantasmal Image. Now they could name, yeah, now they could name both of my removal spells. They can name Lightning Bolt with this one. And that's pretty good. Lightning Helix. Wow. They don't even name Lightning Bolt? That's got to be a mistake, right? That has got to be a mistake. I think we can even like take this game a little bit slow, right? We don't have to rush into it. And we have 2 Path to Exile, so we could do a good job of clearing the opponent's board here. Question is, do we want a Lightning Bolt right now? That would make it pretty clear that we do have like 2 Path to Exiles in our hand. I think we still want to, so our opponent doesn't respond to like our Lightning Bolt with another Phantasmal Image or something like that, or another Meddling Mage, which then means that we have are going to have a pretty rough time actually casting these Path to Exiles here. So this kind of ensures that we do that we are able to. All right, so here, what's nice with Path to Exiling a Meddling Mage or a Phantasmal Image is that they don't actually get a land. So if they want to Aether Vial here, play another Meddling Mage, Kitesail Freebooter. Interesting. Arguably, I probably should Path to Exile it here, just not given the option of Saheeli or Path. Just use my cheap removal spells here as best as possible. Now, if they have something like a Reflector Mage, I feel like they must have drawn this Kitesail Freebooter this turn. But they might just, like, yeah, vial in a Mantis Rider. Yeah. Mantis Rider, swing for 3. But this clock is not fast enough, and so they're really gonna have to have a Reflector Mage here. And yeah, I think I'd rather play an untapped land. Cycle. Alright, we're going to go ahead and F6 through this turn. We don't, other than blocking, we can't do much. I think our opponent's going to want to hold 1 card in their hand, no matter what they do, to bluff Reflector Mage. Now, if they're sitting on Restoration Angel as their last card, or some lists have been playing like PN Kiran Alar, or Whirler Rogue, excuse me, then it's possible that they tick up to 4 here with their Vial. But then they would probably have to tick up this Vial. Yeah, so they don't tick up this Vial to 4, which makes sense. I think they're going to want to continue to hold up interaction, or pretend to hold up interaction. Now, if they go ahead and like vial in like anything right now with that 3, then I will be clear to combo. Unless they go ahead and vial in a Reflector Mage right now, which doesn't make much sense to me to do that to do it in sorcery speed. Thalia's Lieutenant. So they could still have Reflector Mage in hand right now. And in response to this Thalia's Lieutenant. Okay, so we could just be getting smacked for 4 here. Again, they are holding up this Aether Vial here. So if we had redundant combo pieces, I might be more comfortable just jamming Saheeli right now. Interesting. So they could have the Reflector Mage here. Okay, so they had the Reflector Mage, which is interesting to say the least, because we can't cast it this turn, but it doesn't mean we have to cast Saheeli, right? We can just go ahead and block with Wall of Omens, and now they have to... I'm not sure it was correct to do that. And if they were planning on doing that, they should have done it in response to the Thalia's Lieutenant. That way the Reflector Mage could have gotten a counter. But here, we're not dead on board. We have a blocker. And then we can combo in one turn next turn. So they need to rip another piece of interaction here. And the reason we didn't play Saheeli is obviously Saheeli would die to Mantis Rider. Alright, so we'll go ahead and block the Thalia's Lieutenant, because it's the one that represents the most possible damage. Our opponent does not play anything, so if they drew a relevant piece of interaction, they could... Wow, actually Snapcaster Mage? Does that mean we can afford to wait? Because we can go Snap Path on the Mantis Rider, and then block Reflector Mage, block Thalia's Lieutenant, and that means that even if our opponent... you know, rips another Reflector Mage, we're not dead. They could have also ripped a Phantasmal Image. They could also just be holding up interaction just because. There could be a lot of things here. They could even, like, play a Thalia. But then, the thing is... Yeah, Reflector Mage kills us. Reflector Mage definitely gets us here. The question is it worth playing around? That's really tough. That is actually a really tough decision. We could have the option of just you know, again, jamming the combo right now, but it would leave us dead to the card in our opponent's hand. I think I'm gonna go for it. I think, again, they had one draw step last turn, so we'll get a Plains here. Play Felidar Guardian. We'll blink one of our lands here. We'll cast Saheeli. And hope our opponent did not draw their last Reflector Mage or another... Okay, so far this part of the combo is working. Okay, so normally what I do if this works, I go and we'll fast forward this during editing, so don't worry about this right now. Alright, looks like our opponent conceded to the combo, so I didn't have to fast forward that much. I think I had this dialogue window open, so I do apologize if that was, you know, obstructing the game view here. I closed it out though. All right, so it looks like that combo got there. They didn't draw their interaction spell, and we were able to get there. So in this matchup, you definitely want to cut all of your remands. Even arguably, you want to cut Teferi. It's just a really expensive removal spell. The rest of your cards are okay. Spreading Seas is fine because it cycles and it can shut off the Cavern of Souls or other you know, not just Cavern of Souls, but just because we cut the counter spell, so it doesn't matter. But it just kills some of their greedy lands. I like Izzet Staticaster because it does pop Phantasmal Images. I like Engineered Explosives. I like PM Kirnalar. I like Grim Lavamancer. I like the Timely Reinforcements, the Settle the Wreckages, the Ruin Halo, and the Celestial Purge. So, a lot of good cards. The question is, what do we want to cut for them? We probably don't want to cut our combo because it's our best way to win. We don't want to cut our cheap interaction because that's also the way we can win. We probably do want to cut some number of Spreading Seas here. Probably want to cut two Spreading Seas. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards to bring in. We could also cut one Saheeli because she gets hit by Kite Sail Freebooter and she's not so great on her own. click trades, so that's fine. Let's go ahead and bring these in. We have 61 cards right now. Wall of Omens is definitely okay. They do play Champion of the Parishes. They play Thalia's Lieutenants. Excuse me if I shook the screen there. I think we can just cut one more Spreading Seas. Again, it's a draw effect, but we have a good amount of stuff to do in the early turns anyways. Yep, I think this is fine. Just to clarify, we don't bring in Stony Silence. Obviously, they had 2 Aether Vials there. But essentially what we want to do is be able to trade with each of their threats, and essentially it turns Aether Vial to card disadvantage, right? So Aether Vial provides this tempo advantage, and you know, which is sometimes really hard to beat, but we don't want to actively answer it, because they don't need that card to beat us. So we just want to make sure all of our cards are relevant in terms of saving us life, dealing with creatures, and just favorably interacting with the opponent. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to cut Saheeli. Like, we have a Bolt, but the rest of this hand is pretty poor. Obviously, we could draw cards and get there. And 1 Bolt makes me... I guess I'm going to keep this. It's a little greedy. It's very greedy, but we have land, so that means we won't get locked up under Thalia. And we do have a combo piece, which means that if for some reason the board is favorable to play it, then we can go ahead and play one of them. Unclaimed Territory. Let's see what's coming out here. Could be a Noble Hierarch, sure. So, against humans, it's kind of tricky whether you want to bolt the Noble Hierarch. I think, depending on what we draw... Ooh, Path to Exile. That's interesting, actually. So that means if our opponent plays like a Cutsail Freebooter, we could... but if they play like a Sin Collector, so that's where we would get punished. So we have to think, like, obviously they play 4 Kitesail Freebooters, they play like 3 Sin Collectors post-board. I think I'm going to go ahead and... It's tough. We could just hold up either one, and that way we could also deal with like a Mantis Rider. But I think just bolting the bird, essentially, especially because we have a backup removal spell, means that we just stop our opponent from kind of like, vomiting their hand, essentially. They can't go Champion of the Parish into 2-drop. Now, yeah, so this, obviously you can't play around every single line. This is rough, obviously getting our Path to Exile ripped. But we could draw another removal spell to free up that Path to Exile eventually. Ruin Halo. Okay. Sure, we can play that next turn if our opponent plays more stuff or something very aggressive. Human. So still not naming Illusion is... But I guess Mantis Rider could be coming down this turn. Champion of the Parish. Sure. Hopefully our opponent does not play another Kitesail Freebooter. Meddling Mage, naming Saheeli. Oof. That's actually really good. Oh, man. Yep. We get hit for 1 here. We'll fetch up a Sacred Foundry. That way we can fetch up a basic Plains and still have mana for Pia and Kiran Alar. So I think we named Champion of the Parish here. Wow. See? Right there. You got to think ahead of your mana base, because obviously we're not a Cryptic Command deck, so fetching up Sacred Foundry can often feel pretty awkward. But it's actually one of the better lands to sometimes fetch up here. And here we'll just name Champion of the Parish. Right? That's the name of that card? Yeah. All right. Okay, so here they could like play a Mantis Rider and swing in for a bunch. Maybe they're flooding out though. So not naming Illusion. Yeah, it looks like they might be flooding out. Wow, another Pia and Kiran Alar. Wow. This card is going to be great in this matchup. It means we can pop the Kitesail Freebooter, or we can just double block it. They can't play an instant speed Thalia's Lieutenant here to blow us out. White. White. Thalia. Thalia is not good here. Thalia is not very good at all. And if they attack, I'm going to go and just eat up the block. Yeah, they don't have any good attacks here. Interesting. Wall of Omens, not bad. I think I'm just going to go ahead and say go. If they want to go ahead and attack me with Thalia, I think I'm okay with that. But what we could do here is just by saying go, we can hold up a Thopter to block, say, a Mantis Rider off the top, and then sack it in response, or sack it after blocks to target the Kite Sail. That'll free up our Path to Exile, and even though it's taxed under Thalia, we can still play it next turn. And it looks like our opponent is flooding here, and Pia and Kieran definitely stabilize the board, which is nice. Yeah, go ahead and take one of my Saheelis that I don't care about. So this is one of the reasons we obviously didn't want to blow up Pia and Kieran main phase. So again, our opponent just took a card that they Meddling made. So sometimes when you draw these cards in the wrong order, it can kind of, mess things up. Opponent attacks with Thalia. I think we can take the free block here with the Thopter, and then just shoot. We could just shoot the Thalia, right? Yeah, that's fine too. I'm actually okay with that. That means next turn we can pop Kite Sail and cast Path to Exile on the same turn. A land. Is it worth casting right now? I think so. I think we won't be under too much pressure to. Ooh, and there's some of the combo, right? Our opponent's unlikely going to be attacking with everything, but I still think Settle the Wreckage is going to be a good card eventually. Felder Guardian can blink our PN Kieran Alar, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that on top. That'll be something. That'll be a great card. Something great to do next turn, because we can go ahead and pop Kite Sail Freebooter or even Meddling Mage. Like, the thing is, we have like everything at our disposal right now. It's just a matter of time. Like, we're on 4 lands. We would love to have been hitting some land drops. But right now, this Pia and Kieran Alar perfectly stabilized the board, and even the second Pia and Kieran Alar is great because if we can block with Pia somewhere if we need to. Opponent plays another land. Yeah, it looks like they're flooding out a bit, which is great for us. I mean, when these decks flood out, similar to Burn, they're just kind of like a bad aggro deck, especially if you have something to stabilize the board, which we drew at the exact right time, and we fetched for it correctly. So. Sacred Foundry was really important there. Reflector Mage. Okay. Sure. I guess that's a little bit annoying. So here we want to go ahead and pop the Kite Sail Freebooter now. We'll get smacked for 3. Which is okay. Our opponent gets in 3 points of damage. Attack with the champion, sure. Just to do the Ruin Halo check, right? So here, I think I'm just going to go ahead and play the Wall of Omens. We know we're drawing Settle the Wreckage here, but we get to keep up Wall plus Path here. We're just in a really good spot. Attack with everything, sure. We could have held up Settle the Wreckage this turn as well. I don't think we needed to. We're going to go ahead and path the Meddling Mage here. If our opponent drew Restoration Angel turn, that might be rough for us, but we have Settle the Wreckage the following turn. Alright, so that's a land. I think, again, we're just going to go ahead and play Pia and Kieran Alar, restabilize the board, play a land. Next turn we can have a lot of choices next turn. But right now we have blockers against weird things off the top. And that's the most important thing. that we're not dying to like a Mantis Rider. We're not dying to a Reflector Mage. We're not dying to a... Sure. I guess they can Kitesail Freebooter here, take the other Saheeli. But again, we have, you know, a lot of stuff to do here. Sure. I mean, we're not dying to a, whatchamacallit, a Reclamation Sage on Rune Halo, therefore freeing up this Champion of the Parish. Because as you saw, once we shut down this Champion of the Parish, the opponent became a pretty bad aggro deck. Another Felor Guardian, huh. Okay. I think we just want to go ahead and Spreading Seas, try to hit a land. We can pop Saheeli, one of the Saheelis. Let's go ahead and hit the Ancient Ziggurat. There we go. We hit a land. That means we can combo in one turn next turn by freeing up one of these Pia and Kiranalars. Sorry, one of these Saheelis. And, yep, our opponent concedes. We had the kill there. They didn't have any instant speed interaction with our combo. Or any interaction at all. And that's how you stabilize the board there against humans once they flood out a little bit. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. That was the first match here with Jeskai Saheeli. Stay tuned for the second match coming up real soon.